Berry, hitting all the topics like a clothesline flurry. Turn up your speakers and hear them out. You can listen from your car, even on your couch. They too raw, who NXT, handing out Smackdowns, follow on IG. Plus, it's sponsored by Tag Me a Date. Go to YouTube and sub now for every update. It's all wrestling here, no safe space. Now listen in, time to hear from some of the greats.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this contest and new Intercontinental Champion, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
You know, when we when the unfortunate happens and we lose one of the greats, even if it's not one of the greats, but when you lose somebody in the family and he winds up being the GOAT when it comes to ring announcing.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
And we normally would start our show with a 10-bell salute. And I felt this particular time, instead of a 10-bell salute, we do some announcing of Howard Finkel, because even though it was just and new or whatever, it was just everything. Even the way he announced Bret the Hitman Hart, and like Hitman, he would, carry on and on and on. And he was so great. And I had the honor and privilege, Vince, along with you, numerous times work with the guy. And he was just always the most humble and just the nicest all around. In fact, I remember I went to an event that I was working with my wife, and Howard was the MC of the evening. And I was hanging out with him, and we were talking a little bit, and everyone knows, Fink had done weddings, and wrestling-themed weddings, and he would come and do. And I always said, one day I'm going to renew my vows with my beautiful wife, but I can only do it if you would do the emceeing for the wedding. And, he was just, of course, anytime, and, this and that. And he was just the nicest guy. And I spent a lot of time with him. A lot of times you go to these events, you're working, they're working, you don't get to interact. I mean, throughout the night, I got to spend some quality time with him, and it was more than once. And there's nothing more you can really say about the guy. This is the War Report. Welcome everyone. And Vince, go ahead. What do you? I know you on a personal level had some experience with him as well.
Right. Well, let me put it this way: as somebody who has done ring announcing for the last 10 plus, God, I'm so old, years now. When you go into it and when you start doing it, and even as you continue, there's no doubt that you're just doing a poor imitation of Howard Finkel. It doesn't matter who you are, me, Rich Palladino, any of us. We all started out listening to that voice. And so when we do things, it's in the spirit of what he would do. Like it's too good to not steal. The and new, it's such it's not just so much that every other indie wrestling ring announcer who wanted to hit the big time copied him. If you look at the UFC, Bruce Buffer does it. They made a whole marketing thing around hashtag and new.
Right.
How did that come around? That didn't start with Bruce Buffer in the UFC. That started with Howard Finkel in the 80s.
He was the
WWF.
first ever employee of the WWE, which I did not know.
And the longest, too.
Yeah,
and the longest for sure. I thought it was interesting that he was an employee of the New Haven Coliseum in New Haven, Connecticut, and referred the owner of the Coliseum. So he said, you should bring wrestling in. So he brought them in the WWF, and the owner of the Coliseum introduced Howard to Vince, saying, this was the guy who gave me the idea to hire you, and we just had a great show.
Isn't that amazing?
And that got the ball. I mean, it's the littlest thing. If the littlest thing happens differently, if Howard goes to the bathroom at the wrong moment that day, he doesn't meet Vince McMahon. If the show does poorly, if Hulk Hogan got the flu and couldn't work that show and they sold 200 tickets, you'd never even hear of the guy. And here we are, 40 years later, celebrating the life of a quiet, reserved, quietly intelligent person who was very, when allowed to be, and when he chose to be, was very eloquent and well-spoken, but was not a boisterous person, wasn't a braggadocious person. He was extremely humble, and I know that there was a point where some of the guys in the back office, they razzed him, they busted his balls a lot. It's the good old boy thing. So he kind of went through that as well. So that's an unfortunate part of the business, is kind of the hazing that you get as somebody that's lower on the totem pole. You're not your Hulk Hogan's. You can't bust Hulk Hogan's balls and get away with them unless you're at a certain level. But Howard Finkel, shit rolls downhill. You can bust balls on Howard Finkel and nobody'll punish you for it. So I know he got his fair share of ribbing from those guys. But he never he always took it in stride. He never even complained. Like I've heard stories. I'm not going to name names, JBL, but like there are guys who, like JBL, bullied him, JBL, and I hope they've come to realize what they did was wrong, and that now that he's gone, they wish that they treated him a little nicer.
You really think that JBL is remorseful?
Oh, no, not at all. I'm just saying people, the others who might have engaged in that as well, might have some reflection on that. But honestly, he is the greatest ring announcer of all time. Bruce Buffer is up there at the UFC. Michael Buffer with his Let's Get Ready to Rumble.
Oh, he's definitely up there for sure.
They're up there. Rich Palladino is a great indie ring announcer, and he's been doing it for years and years. Rich is up there. I'm not going to toot my own horn here, but I mean, shit, I'd like to be considered among those guys.
Let me tell you something, and this is not blowing smoke or because we've been boys a long time and this and that, but no joke, I've seen your work. I mean, you're definitely one of the best announcers that I've seen in person. Do a show, and that's the truth.
I appreciate it.
There's no company that it wouldn't be a tremendous asset for you to put that fucking suit back on and do what you do, because
we'll see, man.
You do your thing, bro. I'm always impressed.
I appreciate that. And like I said, I started out the same way everybody else who won. I never really started out with the idea of being a ring announcer, but when I got the call, it was to either be a manager or a ring announcer my very first show. When I got there, the guy says, we need a ring announcer. We've already got enough managers. So I took it. And like I said, I did my best, worst Howard Finkel impression in front of like 50 people in a middle school. And little kids were sitting on those blue exercise mats at ringside. They didn't even sell enough tickets to sell ringside seats. Everybody sat in the bleachers, and the kids sat on these little pads in the middle school gym. And we had a wrestling show. And it was even just hearing him. Like, think about it. When you watched him on TV, we all did the same thing. The bell rings, you hear it. Like if there's a title change, and new. Like it's such a. It's amazing. There's a video. I want to say Raz has it. Eric, from the Marks group. Raz might have it, or Credo. Somebody has it where the Now beat the Battle Brothers for the NEW tag titles. And I specifically, because, spoiler alert, I knew the finish. I turned to I think it was Raz had the camera. I turned to the guy with the camera. And I was announcing over the PA, but nobody sees me because I'm sitting at a table. I'm sitting at the timekeeper's table, and there was no camera on me. So I turned to the guy with the iPhone, and I did the announcement. And new tag team champion. I did the whole deal for that, and I want that footage. I've never seen it, but it was just.
Well, if Credo has it, that should be pretty easy to get.
It's either Credo or Raz, one of the Marks guys. But it was one of those things where, again, I was just. There's part of being a ring announcer that you can't skip, like saying things and new champion, certain little quirks that Howard did really well. When I announced multi-man over-the-top rumbles,
yep,
he had a certain way of, it is now time for the Royal Rumble match. He had a way of every year without fail. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the Royal Rumble match. And you remember the cadence in this. So if I did it, I would go, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the over-the-top Rumble match. Like I tried to do my best to imitate him because he is, and nobody's going to top him. He was the innovator. He was the best. Gary Michael Capetta's up there, David Penzer's up there, but again, nobody touches Howard.
You know what, too? You got to give it up to Tony Chimmel.
Oh, Tony Chimmel.
I'm a fan of Chimmel, especially with Edge. But nobody will ever be Howard Finkel.
There was that thing where Jericho posted the clip where Jericho hyped up Howard when they had Tony Chimmel try and replace Howard. And he's like, "You're better than him." He's trying. Jericho's getting them all hyped up, and Howard comes out to the Ultimate Warrior music. And it's on Smackdown. They play the Ultimate Warrior music, and Howard runs down to the ring. He shakes the ropes. He does the whole deal, and then he fucking Thez presses Tony Chimmel, and they have a ring announcer fight, which you don't ever see. So it was such a cool segment. Tony Chimmel ended up, because the gimmick was they wanted Tony Chimmel to go over. Tony Chimmel got the best of him, but it was just so funny to see Howard go out there and get physical and
dude, but he was always down for shit like that.
He was, absolutely.
How about Finkus Maximus? You know what I mean? Caesar's Palace, WrestleMania 9, I think, right?
Yep.
So
or the hair at WrestleMania 10 when he got the
that's right, the hair club for men.
At WrestleMania 10.
That's right, the size Sperling.
But that just
I was there for that.
but that just shows you, he was always he was a true company guy. He would do whatever you asked. Even if it made him look like a douchebag, you know what I mean? He did it with a smile. He did it with grace, and he always saw it for what it was, and he will be severely missed, man. That was a tough one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're all tough in their own way. This one, I had a personal connection with him at one point.
Right.
I'm not saying, I don't want to, say we were friends or anything, but, we did work together a couple times. And, listen, by the third show, he came up to me and said, "Steve, how you doing?" So, it just, this one hurts. This one hurts.
It's always when you meet somebody or you interact with them, it's different. I never met Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero, when he passed away, was a huge deal to me specifically. But I didn't know him. I didn't work I never worked with him.
But you know what?
I worked with Howard a lot.
We as the group of us, us specifically, WWE fans, everything, this is, for all intents and purposes, this is our lives.
Right.
We feel like we know these. I mean, yes, there are
This was
moments,
her childhood.
even everything, like,
Right.
you do know them personally to an extent, but like, I met Howard Finkel once in my entire life when I was 12 years old, and it still made me cry the other day. Like, you gotta be kidding me. You just took a piece of my childhood and basically just yanked it out of me.
And talk about
No.
too soon. I mean, he was
he
what,
was very old
69?
now.
69, yep.
And he really faded quickly.
He's been in Portland for a while now.
He's
I
been
think.
sick for a while, and listen, if he was in pain and this and that, then listen, it sucks, man. This one really hurts. But you know what? He will rest in peace. He was just, if there is another, he's in the right place. We'll just.
There
say
was the
that.
whole thing. There was the whole thing the other day that even Roman Reigns tweeted that Roman Reigns had contacted Howard to see how he was doing, and Howard Finkel's like, "Forget about me. You just survived leukemia. What are you talking about?"
Right.
Wow.
And turned the whole conversation around on him. That's just
course.
the type of dude he was.
Yeah, no, he was, and that's the, it's so sad to see a guy who was so sharp and he knew so much about wrestling to be reduced to.
I might have to cut off my screen because I'm about to cry.
It's rough.
It's emotional. Like this was child's.
Well, when-
put guys like in different roles, like manager, interviewer, Mean Gene, Howard Finkel is the best.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like even when Mean Gene passed away, it's the same thing. It's the
Yeah.
quality. There is nobody like Mean Gene. There's nobody like the Fink. Those guys are one of a kind. They broke the mold, and now,
I was
we're at a
watching
loss without him.
the other day. I was watching the Broken Skull with Ric Flair, and first and foremost, if you haven't, definitely worth the hour and I think about an hour and 40 minutes, and it was well worth it. I probably would have sat through another 2 hours.
Wow.
It was. There were moments that brought tears to your eyes. I mean, it was a roller coaster of an interview, but it was fantastic. It was probably right now my favorite one so far. And one reason why I'm bringing it up, and one reason, he sits there and there was a group shot, and Ric Flair had just won the Royal Rumble and won the world title. He just made his debut or returned back to WWF in the Rumble, and he won. He wrestled well over 60 minutes. So after the match, they're doing an interview, and it's Mean Gene, of course, with Ric Flair, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, and
Jack
Tunney holding the championship belt to present to him. And they had it frozen on the screen, and they're looking at it, and Flair's like, to think that I would be the only one left in that Hall of Fame group right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes,
That's tough to think about. Was it with that guy that rode that hard? Oh my God.
well, you know what I mean? Yeah, and then he goes more deep into that, and Austin and the banter back and forth. It was definitely my favorite, and it put a lot of things in perspective, man. Ric Flair, if there was any ever doubt in my mind overall who I thought was the true greatest of all time,
Yep.
if in my head it wasn't Ric Flair, it is now.
Yep.
I was
a Hogan
always
guy.
on that.
I was
Yeah,
a
I'm-
Hogan guy. But Ric Flair, I think, all jokes aside, I know Sam will say Sting and everything else, greatest all around of all time, had to have been Ric Flair. And that interview solidified it for me.
That
With
was
a
a
tear in my eye.
Yeah,
It was hard to watch, though. Steve's
I'm
absolutely
gonna say
right.
that. I'm gonna say that when I get married, with the tear in my eye.
Some of it was difficult. Some of it was.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because you just, well, listen, we all know the story of Ric Flair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not something that, isn't well known.
Right, but to hear him giving it so candidly, it was like even harder than the stories that we already knew. Hearing him depict them, it was just
Well,
it was
yeah,
hard
I
to
mean,
watch.
and there were parts where he started to break down, and then that
Yep.
broke your heart. And then
Yep.
at one point, you even hear Austin go, "All right, seriously, you gotta stop that shit. You're gonna make me
Stop
cry."
that shit! You're gonna make me cry. Yep,
Right.
exactly. And you could see he was like starting to hunch over on the desk, and he was covering his mouth, like, "Dude, you got to stop." It was hard.
Even during his the ESPN, the 30 for 30 documentary on Ric Flair, he said something along the lines of, "I was never the greatest father, so at least I get to be known as the world's greatest wrestler." And I guess that, that's okay. He'll that was the trade-off that he made in his life, was that he traded off being a great father for being a great wrestler. And
Yeah, but you know what though? But
it's a tough
But that's
exchange.
actually something that they kind of toggle with a little bit in the interview, because even to this day, you can tell how humbled Ric Flair is that people even consider him to be the greatest of all time, because in his head he had lost a lot, and
Well, yeah.
I mean, you got to see it, but you'll
And I
understand
know
what I'm saying. But
He'll say Harley Race. He'll say Dusty Rhodes. If you ask Rick,
yes, that's
he'd
true.
tell you
Yeah.
those guys ahead of him. He might even say the Funks ahead of him. He would give you a list of guys that he thinks surpass him. And sorry, Rick, you're wrong. None of those guys, none of them did it in the same way. And even like you were saying, Steve, with Hogan, I recognize, because I'm a Hogan guy too, but there's a reason that when I put up all of my artwork here, there is a reason I have Hulk Hogan and I have Ric Flair. And there's a reason I've got this damn big gold belt here. This guy, Hulk Hogan, is the best, I guess we could say, sports entertainer. Maybe the best at pro wrestling in the aspect of,
because he
promos
definitely
and drawing
wasn't.
people
I
in.
mean, listen, he definitely wasn't in the top 10 of
it
technical
wasn't
wrestlers.
it was never a technical
Right.
thing with Hogan.
It was just his presence. It was
right.
his ability to read and work a crowd. Nobody could work a crowd like Hogan, really, until Austin.
And the guy was 30-something, 40 years old, getting on in age, bald, bleaching the rest of his hair. Okay? This is we cheered this guy with this overly tanned and the horseshoe and the bald head and the bleached hair and the bleached mustache. If you told a stranger and a space alien came down and you described Hulk Hogan, they'd be like, "Why did you cheer for this guy? Why do you look at him so fondly?" And
Yeah,
then
you're
you
not selling us very good right now, Vince, at all.
That's what I'm saying. That's the magic of it. You look at this, you explain Hulk Hogan to a complete stranger and they go, "I don't get it." And then you see Hulk Hogan do his thing and you understand. But then when you look at Flair, it was everything. Hogan was so much on the entertainment side and the larger than life personality, and he would garner so much sympathy. He'd take a lot of bumps, he'd take a lot of beatings, he'd get the heat, but then he'd do that comeback and he'd
He would
shake his
Hulk up
hair
and-
and
right.
you. And that was what everybody waited for. The punches, the big boot,
Dude,
the legs,
the
whole
roof
deal.
would fly off. That's what, even as a kid, that's what you waited for. I mean, I
Yeah.
would be in my living room waiting to rip my shirt,
Oh, yeah.
and shit like that. It was just everything. But Ric Flair was the ultimate total package.
Right.
If-
It wasn't, you didn't look for that Hulk up moment with Ric Flair.
Right.
You were like, "Oh, he's cutting a promo. What's he going to say here? Oh, he's in the ring taking his friggin' clothes off and, dropping an elbow on his clothes and he's in his boxers. Like, what is he doing?" Like, that was Ric Flair. And then Ric Flair got in the ring and took that energy and transferred it to the wrestling.
Yeah. By the way, Amanda, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, Amanda, since you missed a little bit, we kind of did a retrospective a little bit on Howard Finkel. Well, we talked 15 minutes probably about Howard Finkel. So, is there
I
anything
figured I
you'd like
kind
to?
of jumped in when you were still talking about him.
Yeah, is there anything you would like to add or anything about how any particular memories of matches that he and new champion or anything like that or?
I mean, he was just the voice for like everybody growing up.
Yeah.
Such
Yeah,
a big
definitely.
loss that like some of these people obviously everybody's going to eventually go on, but some of these people you just never think that they will, and then when they do, it makes such an impact in your life that you didn't even realize. And I think he was one of those people for wrestling fans everywhere.
Amen, sister.
Yeah, because especially at being only 69 years old, you didn't really expect him to happen. You heard the stuff about the stroke. Now it turns out it wasn't a stroke. It was some kind of, which is also just as bad, some kind of degenerative brain disease.
Which is hard.
So,
I mean, and it's just so not fair. That happened to, I mean, it shouldn't happen to anybody, but a guy like the Fink, like, again, just knowing him and knowing what a just genuine guy he was, it's a shame. Yeah. It's a true shame.
But seeing the thing that was cool was everybody shared this photo, of course, was the photo of Fink with Tommy Dreamer, and in the background on his board was the reminder for the nurses or the aides to turn wrestling on for him on Monday nights.
Yep.
I thought that was really cool that they did that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he truly loved the business, you know. He really did. He was he will be missed. But listen, we already blew through half an hour already. Which, listen, he's well worth it.
Yeah.
But I do want to go right into, if it's all right with everybody, and talk about this new Money in the Bank corporate ladder at the headquarters match. So ultimately, they will go through all the floors up Titan Towers to the roof and then climb the ladder, and the belt will be above the roof. If I'm understanding this correctly, what are our thoughts?
Shoot me.
It will be
better yet, somebody push Dana Brooke off. There we go.
And I want to talk about that too, actually. But real quick, before we all jump on and really start to kind of criticize this, I want to kind of take it from a different perspective and kind of think about how this is going to be, how uniquely different. You know, I'm not saying it's going to be, you know, what, you know, the Boneyard match was or anything like that. I don't think it's going to be that cinematic, although I do think there will be parts because it's going to obviously be filmed ahead of time. And I don't know.
They already did it.
Well,
I think they filmed it.
They may have filmed it already. That's true, because I know there were pictures that they were there. So
right, they put the ring up on the roof. I think they wanted to film it before they told anybody about it.
Right.
So they could the suspicion would be somebody would fly a drone over and try and capture the footage, because people did that for the Royal Rumble. They flew it over the Astros Stadium,
right,
trying to see the Titantron during the pyro tests. So I think they thought people would try and scope out the tapings if they knew that this was happening.
They probably would have. But so
for real, yeah.
I mean, shit. I'm not far from Stanford.
Neither am I.
But I can still social distance and stay in my car.
That's right.
Get some binoculars. But I think that, you know, listen, you guys know me. I'm all about tradition in a lot of ways. And, you know, Money in the Bank has been a specific way for a very long time. This is going to be different. And I think we got to give it a shot before we go and bash it, because this actually could be something pretty cool and different. You know, we don't know. I mean, listen, it could be a fucking train wreck. Well, you know,
I think the idea here is great, because you shouldn't be taking Money in the Bank TLC style bumps in front of nobody. Fans should have to pay to see you take that kind of risk, like the Hardy Boys would do and Edge and Christian would do, and jumping off tables, you know, jumping off the top of the ladder, crashing through 3 tables, whatever. That's not something you should do in an empty arena. This is kind of I think it's an interesting idea. I expect one floor is going to be cafeteria, so there's going to be a food fight.
Oh, of course.
I expect there to be a fight in the WWF brand. Well, they changed the neon lights, but that gym that they used to show Vince McMahon working out in, that still exists. That's basically the exact same form.
That is a legit gym.
Yes,
Vince,
right.
Vince actually works out in that gym every single day. There's a time set that you're not allowed. Well, there's a time that when he's in there, nobody's allowed in. and you know, all that. But yeah, it's a legit gym. So
But I mean, like,
I'm
it's
with you. They
open.
will use it.
That gym is open for employees as long as Vince
Correct.
McMahon's not in there.
As long as he's not in there, or probably Triple H, I'm sure,
Yeah,
like Stephanie
right.
or any of them. But
Yeah,
yes.
any of the important people. But I'm expecting that. I'm expecting one of the luchadors or Ricochet or somebody like that to be climbing the outside of the building, like climbing up the windows. Let's see. I said free
Right now, the
flight.
WWE is becoming Spider-Man.
But that's what I'm saying. Like somebody, Busted Open Radio, I forget who said it on Sirius XM, said, I think it might have been Mark Henry, said he wants Vince McMahon to come down in a helicopter and hand the briefcase to somebody.
Oh, jeez, Louise.
He probably would.
He probably, take it, damn it. It's yours. You're the next creation. You're going to be bigger than ever. We're going to call you Shorty G.
So listen, I want to not completely shift gears, but since you mentioned, and this just kind of, so listen, this has been a really tough week, right? So not only did we have the unfortunate loss of the Fink, but we also lost a lot of the roster.
They didn't die, by the way. They
And oddly enough, Shorty G did not make that list.
Well, so, you know, and that's, you know, listen, there's got to, listen, there's some guys that got cut that you can't be surprised.
Right.
There's some that I'm kind of surprised, especially when there's others that, like, for example, Dana Brooke, who now all of a sudden looks like she's about to get a push. So what the fuck did I miss? You know, I also, listen,
trying.
Shorty G and listen, I mean, I like him. He's a good worker, but you know, I don't know, man. There's some suspect choices. Like guys like Gallows and Anderson. My only guess with that is that their contracts were fucking high, and you know, it's, you know, it is what it is.
And the Revival the same way. Their contracts were
Well,
high
the
too.
Revival, they wanted out anyway. That was already happening before COVID. I could see Anderson and Gallows coming back eventually. Now, my question is, who actually got fired and who got furloughed? Because furloughed, you're going to come back. Like Sarah Logan, it sounds like got furloughed and not fired because there's already talk that she's coming back.
Same with Drake Maverick. He might be furloughed and not fired.
So I'm glad you pointed that out because everyone by now, I'm sure, has seen his video, which broke my fucking heart. And I wish I had money. Like, I wish I was well off after seeing it because I wanted to support him and buy merch or whatever. But listen, times are tough. You know, but the passion and the realism behind that, like, you can't fake that. I'm sorry. He's not that good of an actor. So, you know.
Yeah, we've seen the bad acting.
Right. So, you know, I think for him to have that reaction, I mean, listen, if you're furloughed, you collect unemployment. I'm furloughed right now. It sucks. But at the end of the day, I have a job waiting for me. So I don't know. It to me, it sounded like, and now he's doing videos with EC3, who we know got released. And you know what? Thank God. Yeah. And that's not because of EC3. It's because they didn't fucking use him from the start for whatever fucking reason.
Yeah.
He is a talent. He should go to AEW, and he's going to be a star. You know, I don't know, man. Some of these releases, you know
what? The entire list was crazy, but the one that keeps jumping out of me, I can't believe
I'm with
Kyoto.
You. Kyoto, yep.
That
that was
freaking
ridiculous.
pissed me off. The man's been there since 1989.
I mean, you talk about loyalty.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and with him, the only thing I could think of also is he's probably got a fucking ridiculous salary because he's been there forever and he's a senior official. Well, listen, they're doing cuts to save money. That's ultimately what it is. So you have to, somebody like him can be replaced. Unfortunately, it's not like you can just do it to fucking Braun Strowman. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, so I don't know. The whole situation
sucks. That entire list of everybody that they furloughed and fired and everything probably equates to Mike Chioda's salary, though. You put all of them together, it probably equals his salary.
It might be. I mean, it depends on what he does. Because here's the thing: those guys, like Charles Robinson, people always comment and they go, "Oh man, look at Charles Robinson." If you go to a SmackDown show and the after show, they go, "Oh man, Charles Robinson, what a trooper! He's taking the ring apart after the show was over. Oh no, look, Tony Chimel. No, do you know what? Spoiler alert, guys. They get paid extra to do that.
Right.
Those guys specifically ask, I want to make more money. I will set up and break down the ring so you don't have to hire another person. I don't know if Kyoto does that or not. At this point, 30 years in, he might not. But there are guys like Chimel and there are guys like Charles Robinson that did that for a very long time. And they were kind of like, I don't want to say double dipping because it's really not double dipping. It's just being paid to do another duty at work.
And it's hard fucking work to put that
is.
ring up and take it down. Like, there's a lot that goes into it, and
But
it's,
if you
it's
look at it
fucking
that
labor.
way-
Like, it's not easy
Right.
to do.
But if you look at it that way, there's a guy who you could pay to do, who is being paid one salary to do one job, but then in a shortage, you might have to pay him to, more to set up a ring, or you might need to pay him more to produce a segment backstage, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? They're looking at it as a business that is being held responsible to stockholders in a crisis.
Yeah, well, they furloughed and got rid of half of the producers and anyone else that's doing anything backstage either. I mean, there was Billy Kidman, Kurt Angle,
Fit Finley,
Shane
that's
Helms.
another one that that
Yep.
surprised me a lot. Because
Shane Helms.
and like Fit
Yep.
Finley, not for nothing.
Cassius
I
Ohno.
really hope Fit Finley was furloughed and not fired, because I'll tell you right now, if he was fired and he goes to AEW, that's gonna hurt WWE, because Finley,
time.
you know what I mean? Finley is the real fucking deal, and
Especially if they have him work with the women's division, because that was his thing.
Right.
Oh my God.
And look what he did to the women in WWE, and look what he
he whipped them into
advocated
fucking
for. Well, that, and listen, he's the reason there was an Evolution pay-per-view. I'm sorry.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, there's a reason. He's the reason there was a women takeover and a woman, whatever the fuck they called it,
I
revolution.
think he's a
and-
future Hall of Famer right there too.
He should.
Oh,
I
without
think he
question.
should. I
Definitely.
think he should be.
That's not even that shouldn't even be debatable.
There was a show years ago, bordering on almost a decade. I would say closer to 7 years. But anyway, in Poughkeepsie, and Finley was working a show against. He was working a match against Caleb Conley. Well, I have something to say about Caleb and his tag team partner later that has something to do with the revival. But I'll tell you the story very quickly. So Finley did this spot where he went to kick Caleb, and he hit Caleb dodged it, and Finley hits the turnbuckle, like kicks the turnbuckle, and makes it look like he twisted his knee when it landed. And so he grabs his knee and he's screaming in pain. The referee throws up the X. I come into the ring. We have two trainers come into the ring. Somebody takes his knee pad off and starts working his leg. Blah, blah, blah. The whole spot was to spend, we spent 5 minutes at least pretending that this guy tore his ACL and his career was over, only for when everybody's back was turned, he goes and rolls up Caleb and tries to get a 3 count. He was faking the whole time. It was fantastic. So even after the show, we're all talking backstage, and I was like, man, that was really great. You were in there when you were, you had this look on your face, you were really, you did a good, it's like telling Picasso, hey, that painting you made is kind of cute. I'm going to hang it on my fridge. I'm like, oh, you did a good job with selling with that. And you're the face, the face that you made. And he just looks at me and goes, yeah, well, I was looking at your face. I'm like, oh, God. Thank you, Finley.
I could go real quick. I just want to say the match he had with Regal in WCW, and he was still the Belfast Bruiser at this point.
Yes, and they beat the shit out of
Entrance theme, but they beat the shit out of each other.
Yep. That was he broke William Regal's cheekbone, broke his nose or something like that. He messed him up.
He had a badass theme music too.
Finley was great, man. He's up there, and I agree. Potential Hall of Famer. A lot of these guys, I mean, there are guys on that list that you could look at and go, yeah, why did they let him
Slater,
go?
he's been there for over a decade.
What about, what's his name? Zack Ryder.
Yeah.
Who everybody assumed this guy was a WWE. It literally took almost the end of the world for them to fire Zack Ryder.
Yeah.
He could have been employed forever if this shit didn't happen. And who knows? Again, maybe he gets his chance on the come up on the way back, but I don't know. It's just interesting to me that he's One guy that you were sure nothing would ever happen to, and that nobody would ever poach or steal away or convince to leave, and he's been let go.
If you guys want to laugh, I found out about the one person that got fired the most times from WWE, 6 times, and it's not going to be a surprise when I say it, Marty Jannetty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know one time he got fired because Marty fell asleep in the locker room after his match, and Sean wasn't happy with how Marty did wrestling in that match, so he told Vince that he was knotted out on heroin or something like that. And they fired him that day. And then later Sean cops to lying, and Marty wasn't actually.
Well, yeah, because Kurt Hennig found out about it.
Right. They told him what was it? They hired him back a month later or something. Long story short, he got fired again for drugs. But,
yeah, because he fucked up. But I mean, to no one's surprise, it's Marty. I mean, look, I love Marty, but we're not surprised, are we?
When I see Marty Jannetty at a wrestling show, he is an absolute joy to interact with. I've never had a bad experience. I think people have had bad experiences with him. I've never had a bad experience with him. He's a nice guy.
No, I worked a couple shows with him. I never had a bad experience.
I mean, he's whacked out to all get.
He's no bird.
Oh, he's fucked up. I mean, he's got a lot of issues. But listen.
Hey, why is Marty Jannetty walking into a high school at 4:30 p.m. with sunglasses on? Figure that
was
one
my
out.
first wrestling crush ever.
He was a handsome guy back in the day.
Yeah, before all the coke.
Right, it was the feathered hair and the mullets. That's what did it.
So, yeah.
Giving my age out there, Vince. Thanks.
But now, so speaking of Zack Ryder, so his girlfriend in NXT, Chelsea Green, right? She got released, but I didn't hear anything about Robbie E getting released. I haven't seen anything. So I wonder what's going on there, because they spent all this time doing the whole Robert Stone brand and with Chelsea. So
they'll just do it with somebody else. I think he's a guy. Listen, he's been around long enough.
Listen, we all know I'm a big fan. I mean, he's been great to me for a long time, and
But knowing him, and then knowing his brother Jerry, me and Jerry used to chat quite a bit online when we worked together, and he used to joke. Me and him used to joke that Jerry would say Robbie was the cockroach of professional wrestling, because like after the atomic bomb goes off, the only wrestler that's still going to be employed is fucking Robbie E. Like he always turns up somewhere. He always, and it's a testament to him hustling. Whether it's TNA or wherever, he always made sure that he had a job. And that was right from his brother. He's like, he's just going to hustle. He's never going to be unemployed.
JTG was that guy.
Yeah. Zack Ryder is furloughed, by the way. He's not fired. He wasn't released. He's furloughed.
Oh, there you go.
I hope that's good.
According to what I'm reading here, along with Kurt Angle, Mike Rotunda, and Scott Armstrong. They're on the furloughed list.
Interesting.
So Kyoto's not on the.
He's not on this list. This is the latest one that came out on Friday. Don't know if they made any changes, because Sarah Logan is actually off of both of these lists now and was apparently at Raw last night.
The only thing that's going to make sense for her at this point, they got to put her with the Viking Raiders.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that makes sense.
Speaking of...
what the hell was that?
What was that fucking promo?
Now this is someone I can speak on a little bit. I know Ivar, a.k.a. Warbeard Hansen.
Yes.
I know him. I worked with him a lot. There is nothing in my body and soul that tells me that he's the kind of guy that does carpool karaoke while dressed like a fucking Viking. There is nothing in my experience with this guy over the last 5 years that tells me he does carpool fucking karaoke with a goddamn Viking helmet and face paint on. This is not a thing that he does. It's not a pastime that he has.
No, but for the record, I could totally see him doing it without the Viking gear on.
Yes,
that I could see for sure.
Life, yeah, definitely.
They did a ride along with them and Sarah Logan, I think, right?
And he's awesome and he's great. But I'm baffled at how they think that is going to make those two guys more over. That's like when they
Is that
released those
officially like their
pictures.
gimmick change now? That's their
I guess we
Instead
are
of saying
Imagine the
war,
Berserker doing that.
instead of saying war, they're gonna change it to that or some bullshit.
Oh,
They should
maybe.
just leave them alone and let them do it. They should be the fucking.
They're gonna record their own song like "Rap is Crap."
Oh,
They're gonna
God.
come out to the Nasty Boys. The Nasty Boys.
You can just have Alex do it. Alex can say it. Fucking leaders.
Yo, I mean that's wonderful. But yeah, I don't understand what they're doing with that. That's like when the pictures came out of the revival and they were gonna have Flavor Flav medallions and lipstick and bow
those look
ties
so
on.
fake.
What in the fuck was that? Please tell me that was fake. I hope it was some kind of awful Photoshop from somebody. I don't know. I just hope it is.
How did Rusev get fired and Lana
yeah,
stays? Can we talk about that for a
Rusev,
moment?
I think, wanted to get out.
I mean, I know exactly why. There's several reasons why. Two of them are Lana's gigantic titties.
They wanted to sing too.
Yeah. Sorry.
As long as she doesn't
the Hat's
talk.
not watching, they're gonna mess up the house, those two. But yeah, but that sheet and they love breaking couples up and fucking with them and putting them on different brands and splitting them up on TV and shit. So of course they would
There
fire
is
one.
no
Look,
doubt in my mind that Rusev is going to AEW. Because I know JR is pulling for him too. So
it
listen,
seems like-
it'll be a good move for him.
It seems like the Revival and Rusev are the most definitive of the pickups.
Oh yeah.
I think Leo Rush would be actually a nice addition to their.
Yes.
Imagine him against Sammy Guevara, or him against Darby Allin, or a three-way with Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, and Leo Rush.
I agree.
And they just
Or
go out
Eric
there-
Rowan now too. You know, since
Oh God.
Have him come in as one of the exalted ones.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't. But how? Here's what I want to know though. And I guess you'd see it if you went to the AEW. How popular would Eric Rowan be on AEW, or like, let's say you ran an indie wrestling show and you were going to pay someone who just got released to be.
as long as there ain't
on
no
the show.
cage with a fake fucking tarantula, I'm sure he'll be fine.
But you think, like, was he over enough that people are going to care about Eric Rowan, that he's going to make a splash in AEW?
Normally, I understand what you're saying, and normally I would agree with you. But I also feel like at this point, he's a WWE name, so that alone, I think people get excited over that.
Not only that, though, it was a shitty way that they were booking him lately. Like,
Yeah, he
I know-
actually wasn't
I
a
know
terrible-
I know the Bludgeon Brothers weren't popular because you guys didn't care. Some of you didn't care for like the entrance and like, you know,
It was just it could have been good. That's the
But
thing.
but the
ridiculous
two of them
sledgehammers.
together work very well together. It's
They
not
do.
like he's shitty. I mean, he was a member of the Wyatt family, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know,
he's not
it's
on the
not
level
like
of
he's-
Harper, but he's still, you know.
He could work. Just don't give him a microphone. We're okay.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, it's because it seems so. This Luke Harper exalted one Brody Lee thing. So he's pulling. There are some shots of Vince McMahon, of course, with like the way he eats food and like he doesn't like people sneezing around him and all that shit. But there's also a lot of influence from like the Church of Scientology and David Miscavige and all that stuff. So and like cult leaders and just how like the reason that people see this as a parody of Vince is that a lot of high level executives just act like Vince. They're fucking shut in weirdos and they have their own little ticks. And it's the same thing with like cult leaders. They have their own like quirks as much as a cult leader can be quirky. But if you imagine, like, he's running it almost like a business because he wants these guys, even if they're wearing their masks, to like dress up in a shirt and tie, and like he's trying to run this like a business, even though it's really like a cult. So I could see him bringing in Eric Rowan as like his Dwight Schrute. Like he could be
Assistant to the regional
right.
manager.
He's the assistant to the exalted one. Could you fucking
That would be
imagine?
awesome.
That actually works in
I
a
like
very
that.
And he
twisted
just
way.
like, yeah, and he just like narcs on people. He didn't button the shirt all the way up, boss. You know, shit like that. You know, and just like be the.
That would be amazing.
Oh
I love it.
man, I think I just found a spot. You're welcome, Eric Rowan.
Yeah, see, Piggy had a job.
You know,
All good.
I have a way that they could have saved some money and maybe saved some superstars. Not hiring Gronk.
Oh yeah.
So what the fuck is going on with that now?
He signed the dotted line.
Yep. The New England Patriots have traded retired NFL player Rob Gronkowski.
How do you trade somebody that's retired?
Because he's still under contract with them.
Okay.
He retired and was listed as inactive through this last season. And there was a cutoff point in November where he could rescind his retirement, but on a certain day in November, he had to stay retired for the rest of the season. There's nothing that says you can't come out of retirement and file the proper paperwork, but he had to take that season off. And because his contract still hadn't expired with New England, he's still considered part of their roster, just an inactive member of their roster. So they traded Rob Gronkowski, the New England Patriots traded Rob Gronkowski in a 7th-round pick to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers give the Patriots a 4th-round pick. Who gives a fuck? Those are nobodies.
Yeah, even the WWE's covering it now. And it's, as it's captioned as the 24/7 champion is on the move.
Yeah. So that'll, yeah. Oh, his buddy got fired, didn't he?
I never saw
not
Mojo on
Mojo.
any fucking
Mojo
list.
Rawley did not get fired. Nope.
What about the other
That's
guy?
another questionable
Yeah, but no, one of
non-firing.
the other guys, like Tino Sabatelli or somebody got fired, right? One of the other football guys.
Not
Was-
that I'm aware of.
Yeah, Tino Sabatelli.
Tino Sabatelli got
You know, Sabatelli did. I know No Way Jose did, and that pissed me off too.
Yeah, I mean, but again, what was
I
No Way
would
Jose
expect
doing?
him. I mean, yeah, you know.
I
they're
feel
not-
bad because I think it's a.
He's a
I
good
feel
talent.
bad for all of these people because there's a reason they were hired by WWE. They saw something in them. They developed them for years. They just, it's another, all of these are cases of not being used right. No Way Jose was over, and they could have capitalized on it by making him a mid-card friggin' hacksaw Jim Duggan style guy where to this day people are saying, like he could just be a guy that comes out, does the No Way Jose, does the stupid punch, and then does a conga line. Like he could have just been that guy
Right.
forever. And they didn't capitalize on that because that's not their focus right now. But even the Revival, those are locks. Those are sure things. They've proven it to you a lot on TV and NXT and everywhere else that they were better than what they were being booked as, and they didn't need to have Icy Hot being rubbed on their backs or whatever the fuck else. Like that was just so unnecessary to what they were trying to accomplish with their characters.
Well, now according to this, Primo and Epico actually both are booked for the Legends of Ring convention Saturday, October 3rd in Jersey.
Yeah.
They
Those
got-
guys,
I think a lot of us didn't even realize they were still employed.
they were only. Here's the thing: they collect a paycheck as a favor to their dad, Carlos Colon Sr., because Carlos owns WWA in Puerto Rico, and basically by employing his sons, Vince guarantees that if anybody that comes up in Puerto Rico as a wrestler, he can poach them before anybody else. Like they're not going to AEW, they're not going to the NWA. If somebody gets developed in Puerto Rico right now,
That's how we got Savio Vega.
yeah.
Hey, let me ask you this. Not that I think, like, even AEW, I don't think anyone is necessarily going to be reaching out and glomming a lot of talent, you know, right? Because everyone's going to be cautious of their spending. But at the same time, I just... why is there still a 90-day no-compete?
Yep.
Like, if you get terminated, why would that still be... You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't understand that.
I agree.
There's no reason for it. There's no reason for it at all, especially in what's going on right now.
Yeah, like would it really make a difference anyway, right?
Right. AEW's already taped their shows through May, so that's 60 days right there, you know? It's ridiculous.
Right, but they could still always try and tape something or still do something and throw something in. You know what I mean?
True, yeah.
If it's already taped, hey, listen, you know, we acquired you. Great. Let's throw a scene into this and do this. You know, they can do editing and stuff when it's not live. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
There's plenty
They
of things
pop
you
it
could
in.
factor in, picking up like a perfect example, like what you just suggested, like with Eric Rowan and Luke Harper or something. If
you could just film that and pop it in.
You could film that shit and throw it in there somewhere. You know, everybody's in social distancing in 3 different locations. Hey, guess what? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I guess we answered the question why they kept the 90-day.
But it's stupid.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if WrestleCade ends up being a thing still this year in November, they're going to have a lot of people to bring on.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Shit, I'll meet the Colognes. I don't care.
There's one other thing that we actually didn't bring up that I have to ask everybody. Do we still think Kairi Sane is alive after what Nia Jax did to her last night?
No.
She seemed fine.
She's even.
She seemed
She'll live. She's tough.
She moved. You just sounded like freaking Drago. If he dies, he dies.
If he dies, he dies.
But of course, Nia's gonna come back and fucking hurt somebody.
No, but did you see the stupid tweets going back and forth again now?
No, I didn't.
Now they all started or whatever saying like, you know, and didn't Nia complain that Ronda wasn't safe and everything?
Wow, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The fuck was that?
Wow, very nice.
That was a very interesting segue, Vince. I got it.
But I'm just saying, that was something. You're right. She was complaining about Ronda being stiff, and she goes around busting people's heads open. She was the one that punched Becky in the face.
Yeah, since Kairi Sane can't anything about it, okay, Nia needed to learn how to go back to spelling school. Steve, maybe we could be her Common Core teacher. Maybe Ronda Rousey would like to try the Samoan for real.
Oh,
but now they're going back and forth, but really, Nia.
No, sorry, Nia. Ronda would still fuck you up.
I don't want to see that match. We saw it once. We don't need to see it
Nia,
again.
get out of the Shredder costume and take some English lessons and then talk.
All right. So Nia came back and she has new gear.
No, she doesn't.
Well, I know. But I wanted to bring it up because they made those wings more pronounced. I don't understand what they're going for. What is the look? Is it to cover up her hips because they think she has big hips? I really don't.
She looks so much skinnier when she's not wearing these ridiculous outfits.
Yeah, if you look at her Instagram and she's like in normal clothes, you're like, wow, yeah, she's in good, pretty good shape.
No, she has. I mean, I'm not going to say she has. I don't want to sound rude, like she has a decent figure, but she's not as huge as the spandex and the shredder shoulders and the.
Yeah, it's not flattering.
Like, what is it? Fanny packs they're putting on the fucking side of her.
Yeah, it's not flattering.
It looks almost like this thing. It's like inflatable. Like you have to blow it up before she goes out there.
Yeah.
Like remember like the Air Nikes and you would push on the things to pump them up? They're pumping up her freaking outfit.
So like the first Missy Elliott video.
Yes. Leave it to Eric to go with the old school rapping references. I love it.
That's beautiful. It's
top of the hour.
Top of the hour here, Steve. Is there anything that you want to address before we close out for the evening?
No, not right now. Awesome. Everything's going to be delayed for a while. It's just going to take some time, especially now with COVID and everything else.
For real? Oh yeah,
like everything else. So but we'll keep you updated as we move along, and we'll we'll let everyone know.
This is in a time of uncertainty for people in their jobs and all that, we're doing something that we enjoy, and that it's free. It's something that we can is an escape for us and for people who listen. So
it's we're just doing our best. From the Common Core homework,
right? Yeah, I mean, geez, I can't imagine being suddenly being a teacher. And lunch lady and everything else for your kids.
It's tough, man.
Teacher, 6th grade teacher, 2nd grade teacher, and a kindergarten teacher.
Oh my God.
I'm in the same boat.
It's horrible.
So we're just trying to, we all have our ways of dealing with it. So we're going to deal with it here once a week, 7 p.m. on Eastern time. If you're following along on Twitch or on YouTube, you go to youtube.com, type in the search bar, tag me a date. No spaces, tag me a date. You'll find our account. You can subscribe, hit the bell to get a notification when we go live. And also follow our social media. It's at Tag Me a Date, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc., etc. If you're looking for the podcast, you also use at Tag Me a Date, but you can go to SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or the Apple Podcast Store. And again, search for at Tag Me a Date. You'll find our podcast. The audio version goes up a day or two after the live version, which again is every Tuesday, 7 p.m. on Eastern Time. So we'll come back with more talk of what happens. The actual shows themselves, nothing terribly exciting really goes on. But all the backstage stuff is still juicy. So we've still got firings and perhaps acquisitions and speculation about these pay-per-views that are coming up and other things like that. So there will still be, despite a kind of a lack of wrestling or a dearth of wrestling, still stuff to talk about. So we'll be back next week. The War Report, brought to you by tagmeadate.com, 7 p.m. on Eastern Time, right here live on Twitch or on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and we will see you next week.